Hi everyone, I'm Dinali from People's HR and I'll be your moderator for today's webinar on future-proof payroll, navigating compliance in the digital age. A very good morning to our friends joining in from Africa and a very good afternoon to our friends from Southeast Asia. We want this session to be as interactive as possible. Feel free to add your questions to the chat throughout the webinar. We'll address them as we go along. Before we start the webinar, I'd like to introduce our speakers. Meet Asita. He's our Chief Product Owner here at People's HR. He brings over 20 years of software experience. He leads our product strategy team and has instrumental experience in driving HR innovations and transformations across various industries. And now meet Riazi. He is the Director of Sales and Partner Management at People's HR. He has over 15 years of expertise from industry giants like Microsoft and HSBC, and he excels in developing HR solutions that enhance workforce efficiency and building strong business partnerships. All right, that's all about it for our speakers. Now let's dive right into our discussion. Over to you, Riazi.
Thank you very much, Dinali. Good day to everyone. I hope, I'm sure everyone is actually, anticipating the weekend. I'm talking about the people in South Asia side, but from the African side, I'm sure that you're just starting your day. All right. So just to get things started, see, this is a very interesting topic. Last time, actually, when I was in Manila talking to an audience on payroll, it was quite uneasy. The entire audience went silent. And then I assure you today, I have no intentions of actually making it very uneasy, but giving you some interesting insights, knowledge, and factors which you can actually take back while you, when you finish the webinar. All right. See, it has been a common practice whenever you actually attend an in-person event, a webinar, everyone talks about AI. AI is the most important thing these days because see, no company wants to be left out and they want to actually get into the wagon and run with it. See, by doing this, we are forgetting one of the most critical elements, especially if you're a labor-intensive organization, about payroll. This statistic is actually coming from a survey which was done for payroll by ADP. And they have pointed out saying that most common drivers for payroll in 2024 is cost effectiveness and digitalization. It's not or, it's and. Basically, they have rated them at the same level. So let me pass on this question to Asita. Asita, do you think these are equally important, or cost effectiveness is more important, or digitalization is more important?
Yeah,
love to hear that from you.
Good day to you all. So yeah, it's a kind of a very debating question, like whether it's 50-50 or what comes first, because like from our experience for last 27 years running payrolls, so what you're seeing in various parts of the world is that people are, the primary objective they are looking at is deploying a payroll and being effective and productive and all this. But what important is the path, how they are going to achieve that. It's not really the cost effectiveness. Sometimes the solutions can be costly as well. So there are cheap solutions, there are costlier solutions. So the ultimate yield depends on how best they are in kind of catering to a business requirement. So one is, I think, on both of these, your digitalization adoption or your strategy is most important. It's the roadmap how we are going to automate certain parts of your business process. So if you do the path properly, and if you identify your KPIs and the outcomes, short term, long term, and sort of, and then you will realize your cost effectiveness goals as well. So I mean, like, survey can tell, like, these are sort of equal, but when it comes to different organizations, how they perceive. So I would say, like, we have to have a path, so which is in terms of digitalization, and have the right measurements, so that outcome KPIs from cost effectiveness and productivity improvement can happen realistically.
Thank you, Asita. I mean, interesting point, because see, I mean, if I'm summarizing what you just said to the audience, basically your path towards cost effectiveness is basically digitalization. So that's basically how you achieve it. And I'm sure when you actually talk to some of the payroll staff, when we actually engage with some of the organizations, it's an interesting saying, because see, uh, employees are never what do you call unhappy as long as they actually get nothing less than what they have been planned. But if they get more, they'll be happier. So, I mean, only when there's a payroll error or an issue, basically the payroll teams get criticized. So that's very important to note. See, I was talking about employees. So don't you think payroll has what you call a role to play in the employee experience? Because see, when I was reading through this what you call research, this is another area which was not the topmost priority, but it was basically like the third point, which was actually highlighted, saying employee experience. What's your take on this, Asita?
Yeah, so again, it's an important topic because I'm actually focusing on two words here on this slide. One is the experience, and the other one is accuracy. Because given the payroll, it must be accurate. Otherwise, there's nothing called payroll. There's a problem, then it's not a payroll. So, I mean, we have to keep accuracy as a given thing. But then on top of that, so when you have a platform, it's important to have employee experience. So employee experience in terms of like in a typical organization, sometimes the payroll officer sits in a corner and run the payroll and produce payslips in an envelope. But that's the Excel-based payroll system. But when it comes to a digitalized proper payroll system, it as same as the administrators, the employees also feel fabulous of using the system. So that's part of the experience. So when it comes to different ways of how people experience a payroll, would be like, you check your balances through a mobile app. You know your December bonus is coming up. Sometimes maybe like how much work you need to put up to have your allowances as per your need. Maybe you have your own target for certain allowances over time and things like that. So a digital platform or mobile app where it would help you to kind of pre-plan your work arrangements during the month, and then again, like check your pay slip. You don't need to go behind HR department or payroll department, ask for envelope, a piece of paper, but you have all that in a mobile app or in a self-service. And then the other important thing is that it's sort of a peace of mind for employee as well. You can check daily what's happening. Like, say you start a new month, you are maybe in the mid of the month. So, you know what's happening to my payroll, what I can anticipate at the end of this month, because I might have certain no pays or, other late or other deductions, and maybe I have done some overtime. So I can gauge what's my earning is coming to be. So it's sort of a pre-planning as well. So it's basically experience is knowing things in advance and being transparent of what's happening with your pay, which is more important as a worker in an organization. So that's what I think we are saying, what this is all about.
Thanks, Asita. I mean, just reminds me of a simple visit which I actually did yesterday. I traveled about almost 100 kilometers off Manila. I went to this organization, and what do you call? They had the HR department outside. There was a counseling area. Basically, there was a small window which says "Collect your payslip here." I mean, it actually brought a thought to my mind, asking, like, why does the employee has to come all the way from whatever he is doing, just to collect his payslip if it's required. So I mean, today's world, a digital world where you actually could see it in your mobile app, or getting directly emailed to your inbox, would be a very convenient approach. But at the
Absolutely.
same time, see, I mean, I mean, definitely these are digitalization goals. But see, do you also think at the same time that what do you call, the employees also have the right to understand or have a little bit of transparency of how payroll happens in the organizations? Probably. Uh, uh, like the policies, the cutoff times, what the organization use, any
Oh,
practices what been followed. I mean,
yeah.
is there a way that they can actually find out about this information?
Yeah, actually, because like, it's employees need and a want within the organization. If I do this, this is my payout. So maybe you need to know about your policies. Maybe you need to know the cutoff times and things like that. So that's why you have these chatbots, generative AI based applications where you can feed in the organization policies. Then the bank can train themselves, and then people can simply ask questions. If I apply leave before X number of days, will that impact my payroll? Or things like that. Or maybe like, if I do overtime X number of hours exceeding, will it be a eligible situation in my organization? So because in different organizations, you have these thresholds, policies which run these overtimes and other deductions. So employees should know. So rather than they remember everything, they simply go to the bot and ask these questions. So bot get trained based on the organization policies. So it's really important, like, having tools plus getting responses to what they require. Yes.
Thanks, Asita. I think that's quite a relief, because see, it definitely, because sometimes there are employees who voice their concerns out. I mean, when they try to actually do work, try to do a little bit of overtime, and actually when they don't get paid, yeah, that creates concern. And there are employees who doesn't talk about it, which can also lead to what do you call employee retention goals. Because I mean, you might be actually losing more employees than you think, just because there's no transparency or communication. I think these are good ways in which you can actually focus doing this.
Of
Uh,
course.
yes. Some interesting stats. So, Asita, we are not here to talk about organizational growth strategies, are we? I don't think we are.
No,
But
no, we are not.
see, we are not. Yes. So, but see, these are very, very critical areas for organizations to understand. Asita, would you want to give us a perspective on the slide you're seeing now?
It's like this. I mean, like, rather than we looking at the numbers, I think we should look at the topics here, because like, when
Dinali, is it my side, or we have some
I
technology
think
trouble for?
yes, we do. Just give it a moment. Let's just wait for
Yes,
Asita.
just give Asita a moment. So, I mean, while Asita actually connects back, just giving some insights on what we were actually initially thinking. Because see, when we saw this research, it was interesting. Areas like cost management, commercial growth, expansion, areas like this actually coming into a payroll survey was rather surprising for us. But see, the interpretation was quite different from what we saw when we actually understood this. Because see, it's not how what do you call you do this, it's how you actually get payroll statistics, uh, what do you call insights, what you do into these areas. Because see, for you to actually coming to, for an example, the cost management perspective, you need to have enough uh, data analytics which is available for you to actually plan this. And it really moves beyond just analytics from what you have done. Even when you, I mean, for an example, now organizations as they grow, they look at, I mean, we'll just assume a very simple operation like probably a bakery. When they want to actually expand into a new region, they look at actually opening up what you call uh, a new branch in a different area. So when you want to actually open this, there are what do you call aspects like, I mean, what would be the cost for employees? What type of employees would I need? What are the local statutory requirements which I need to fulfill? Now, see, statutory requirement actually moves beyond sometimes our country boundaries. Within our country boundaries, you actually sometimes find, certain regional compliances, whether we are compliant in this, whether we have actually knowledge which we can be gained. So these are all critical considerations. So how all of this can actually be gauged is basically if you do actually have a proper analytical engine running with yourself within your organizations. And automatically this actually gives you that perspective. And I mean, without any doubt, if at all, if you're looking at a digitalization strategy, definitely your payroll actually needs to support this without any doubts. So while we actually again wait for Asita to join back in, so let me move a little further into my slides. So I mean, when I saw these statistics, I mean, this was again a big surprise for me, because see, what this says is that, there are a lot of people who are still, or a lot of organizations who are still looking at automation. I mean, automation actually started with, a lot of softwares coming into the industry very long back, but still we actually see a lot of organizations has not achieved this automation goal. Let me take some examples, some scenarios. So if you look at most of the what you call organizations operating in the African, Asian regions, basically we find a lot of labor intensive operations. I mean, let's go to a scenario of a manufacturing. I mean, I've worked with this organization which has over about 40 to 45,000 employees. Now they operate with about 30, 40 factories. And imagine, what you call 3 to 4,000 employees coming into a factory on a daily basis. So when they come in, basically they need to make sure that they capture the attendance. So as all organizations in these regions, basically what we have seen is, yes, they do have a biometric device. But what's the point of only having a biometric device if you are unable to process this information? So what happens is, once the data comes in, uh, the biggest point which organizations actually miss in terms of automation is they think automation actually happens just because you, what do you call, install a software, automation is achieved. No. When it especially comes to HR and payroll aspects, basically automation is achieved when you empower your employees. See, in this scenario, in this factory flow environment, what happens is now the employees are able to decide, if at all, if they are unable to come in advance, they can actually apply for a leave. This is a critical input for the payroll. And if at all, if they can swap their shift with another, what do you call, colleague, they immediately do so, so that, what do you call, the organization doesn't need to suffer without having enough people coming into the factory floor. Because see, if it's a labor intensive operation, about 5 to 6% less in employees for the day's work can mean a major impact. So what happens is, when this information comes in, now there are a lot of compliances which gets added on. So I mean, if I take for an example a country like Philippines, see, there are multiple types of OTs which is being followed. If at all, if you do work on a holiday, the treatment for OT is completely different than how it is actually you working on a regular day. They have things like night differentials, so many what do you call, scenarios which needs to be looked at. So imagine if you have not operated a situation like this, all this information coming in as raw inputs for the payroll, the paymaster or the payroll team, like climbing a mountain. At the end of every pay cycle, they need to sit down and do all this, which consumes a lot of times. It's extremely prone to errors. And at the same time, if these errors are only about, employee aspect, they'll probably, come back and actually, raise a grievance with the organization. But see, if the grievance is not about employees, I mean, this is something to do with legal statutory framework, yeah, that raises a major concern. Because see, this can actually go to the extent of even an organization losing their licenses. So how can you rely on, what do you call, a set parameters, a proper structured way of actually calculating these areas, fed into the payroll, so that, you don't have to worry about this. Basically, it's only about making sure that, the calculations have come out right and approving the payroll, so that the employee does not, what do you call, face any issues. At the same time, the organization does not actually come under any lawsuit. So this is a very important area. When you talk about automation, you need to see what are the inputs, how you empower your employees, and at the same time, how do you remain compliant. So these are critical areas. Asita, I'm assuming you're back. You're on mute, Asita.
Yeah, I'm back. Small glitch as usual in the computers.
So Asita, I was giving them a brief about giving the audience a brief about how automation works. So see, I mean, I think you joined timely. Thank you for that. Because see, one critical area what I want to understand is I was giving a scenario of an organization with about 40 to 50,000 employees.
Correct.
Now, we know through automation of attendance, the leaves, empowering employees, we can actually achieve a great degree of automation. But at the same time, when it comes to payroll, still there could be areas in which organizations can further improve. Would you want to give some insights as to how we can achieve this with technology?
Right. So when it comes to automation and technology, yeah, see, so there are several ways that we can handle. First is when it comes to let's take RPA for example. RPA would be a very interesting area when it comes to automation. So it will take care of a lot of manual activities which have been done by the usual administrative staff, and then it will run on a scheduler where it will take up the burden of mundane tasks, and then it will process the payroll smoothly. So if the organization is having the best practice established, then the RPA kind of work areas will help them in achieving these targets. And the other one is another critical factor we could understand is that the anomalies or the use of AIs. So AI is not just kind of validations, but AI is kind of a tool that provides insights where it is not being seen by us at a glance. So anomalies are mainly a factor within an organization where you can't detect at once. As research says, it takes about 18 to 24 months for an anomaly to get highlighted. And it will cost around 5% of annual turnover. So when we embed anomaly detecting AI, so it will understand certain patterns of the pay items and how it get processed, and then it will provide recommendations to the payroll officer saying, look here, there is a problem, why don't you check? So there are things like that, Riyasi, where it will help the automation for the payroll to run smoothly.
So, Asita, see, again, I mean, one of the main, what do you call, elements which I actually highlighted to the audience is talking about, I mean, where the automation starts. Definitely, the automation doesn't start from payroll. For payroll to be
Yes,
automated, it actually comes in from areas like uh, attendance, leave, what do you call,
of course.
from the employee information. I mean, for certain organization, it basically starts from recruitment because you don't really, what do you call, recruit a person and send an email offering him his salary, right? So ideally,
Correct.
the candidate should be able to, what do you call, accept the offer through the HR system which is being used, so that that inputs are automated. There is a transparent flow of information between the candidate, the organization, and once it's approved, basically without any human intervention, it goes directly to the payroll. So
Correct.
likewise, I have seen this industries which actually have skill-based work. Do you
Hmm.
think that we are able to still help automating even skill-based workers to be automated into their rosters through a solution?
Yes, of course. That's an interesting topic that we need to discuss, because if you take any organization, whether it can be manufacturing, hospitality, hotel, or any industry, an employee is attached to a workstation. So it can be a machine, it can be a desk, it can be maybe a front office. So in a particular workstation, you need to have certain skill set to perform the job as expected. So if there's a skills attached to a job, and there's a skills attached to employee. So there is a element of intelligence where it understands and see whether we have sufficient skills existing within the organization to run these workstations properly. And then this automation help to figure out whether there are people on the floor today, or whether there are people which have been not which has been not been rostered, so that the rostering system mechanism will help to identify the people with the right skill patterns and to do the future rostering based on the patterns of the future absenteeism and the availability of the employees. Yeah.
So, Asita, that's interesting. So, I'm sure since we are talking about a topic such as payroll, I'm sure we have an audience full of individuals from finance teams, because
Correct.
in organizations there are finance, who processes the payroll for the organization. Uh,
Correct.
so, see, do you also think that, this automation, like, this skill automation helps into actually going into details like segregating of cost centers, probably passing the GL files to the finance system?
Of course, because like when you process the payroll, so the employees are anyway attached to a cost center. So the reporting based on the cost center or different organization units is quite easy through the reporting tools, or through a visualization dashboard. And then once you generate the bank file, bank diskette, so we do two things. One is we write back to the chart of accounts of a ERP if required. We provide APIs, or else we write to a banking system, a core banking system, where the payments get released automatically to the employee.
Got
So
it,
we
Asita.
do both.
Got it. So again, one interesting an interesting memory, because see, I was working with this customer, an organization where basically the payroll was done by the finance team. So
Correct.
the finance head was pretty tough in terms of selecting the right solution. So one of his critical areas or critical thoughts which was in his mind was actually to get the analytics right. So what happened was, he was kept on actually pushing into reports. So fortunately we were able to actually show them areas like interactive analytics, like where you can actually do your analytics in your system. So recently I actually managed to meet this individual, and to my surprise, I was actually happy to see the kind of analytics he has done. So it was very detailed. So these are all the problems in his head. He has actually come and put it into the system for him to see. So he has done
Right.
variance analysis where he's not only comparing the past period. Now, these are not what we gave them. He has done it on his own in the system itself, because the capabilities were there. And he has even gone into trying to do a little bit of anomaly detection there, like comparing about average of last 6 months,
Okay.
average of last year's last 6 months, so that he sees certain patterns already. So I think definitely, if you fully automated your payroll process, reporting should not be a very difficult task, and there should be multiple methods in which you should be able to get this information.
That's
So
correct.
thank
That's
you,
correct.
Asita, for all your insights as well. So, in a summary, would you want to actually summarize what we just discussed onto these slides before we actually go into a more
Yes.
in-depth area?
Yes, that's really important, because like now we are closing one chapter. So when it comes to the first part of this, it's basically you focus on what requires, because like as an organization, sometimes we may have a very detailed wish list, but let's start with step one. So focus on what are critical pain points in payroll, and then check what are the related automations that you need to do, whether it can be leaves or maybe attendance or having a proper masters, and then take step by step in digitalization. So cost is a primary factor, but it's not the really primary factor as in for a long-term beneficial. So select a proper payroll tool which has a wide range of capabilities, from processing the payroll to bank transfers, reconciliation, automation with RPA, and maybe embed with certain AI tools to help your insights. And then prioritize what data points that you want to bring into the system. You can't just go big bang, but you have to go on a phase model. And then harness the technology platforms you use. And maybe like the self-service users, your admin users also has to be delighted because they are people who are working 24/7 in the system. So we should not underestimate their value, make their life easier and make them productive as well. Yes, yes.
Thank you, Asita. So I mean, I'm sure everyone knows about the famous saying, right? Penny wise, pound foolish. So I've met many what do you call organizations and managed to help them what do you call revive from what do you call very terrible situations they've actually been into. So I think it's very important how and what do you call the methodologies they use in terms of actually evaluating the right payroll provider, because
Correct.
see, country statutory requirements is not something which can be played with, nor the compliance. I think it's a very critical area which needs to be spoken about. So if you go into different countries, they have their own set of rules, own set of what do you call ways in which they actually perform these rules. There are changes which actually happens regularly. Asita, I mean, I am aware that you do actually provide services in 40 countries, but I mean, thinking of it, it actually is giving me a headache to know that how do you actually adopt all these payroll practices, stay up to date, stay ahead of the game, so that our employers don't actually pay the price of not knowing there are changes which has happened. Would you want to shed some light into this area?
Yes, actually, like it's a interesting area, but it's again a comprehensive and complex area as well. Because like when it comes to a payroll readiness for a country, it doesn't mean like you only process payroll, but you process the payroll as per the need of your country's employment and taxation laws, maybe common law, common practices within the organization, and then on top of that, you have your own organization policies and other practices. So when it comes to country, like we adopt a partner mechanism where we partner with different legal and consulting firms to get the statutory requirements of different countries. And then through our engineering practice, we embed those into the system and we do a regular updates and time to time. So when it comes to regular updates, so those are ad hoc. We can't say what happened tomorrow, what can come up in these 40 countries in tomorrow. So we have a kind of a backup bandwidth always to accommodate this and make it production as soon as possible to reduce the burnout from any client point of view. And then another interesting point is that certain countries, even though we kind of automate the taxation and other practices, it won't enough. We have to get certified by the Inland Revenue Departments for us to be an eligible vendor in processing payrolls. So it's really important to have these things in line and assume that you are running a payroll or you are running organization spanning across different regions. Maybe you are having headquartered in maybe in let's say in Singapore, and you are having a branches in maybe Philippines or in Kenya. So how can a payroll system take on all this, and maybe at the day end provides you a consolidated roll-up summaries. So it's really important to see like, how a multi-country operation or multi-currency operation can handle through a single payroll. And then again, it's really important to see how, as a leaders in organization, you would see the proper cost distribution among different cost centers in different countries. And you have a way roll-up summaries at organization level so that the total payouts or total other pay items which get impacted on your payroll. So for example, let me give few examples like, in certain countries you have overtime thresholds, or certain countries you may have minimum wage conditions, maybe minimum age conditions, or maybe there are certain other factors relating to maybe like the the longer shifts, or maybe lifespan of a shift, things like that. So there are various conditions, not only on payroll, sometimes maybe on attendance and leave, which we have an impact and which we need to consider as well. So yeah, yes, so it's a comprehensive area, but as People's HR, we have the structures in place to handle that.
Thank you, Asita. So, Asita, I think I mean, in one of your examples, you raised a very important point. See, you said that there are OT thresholds. Now, I mean, yes, I mean, I have also seen certain countries have this OT threshold scenario, but do we have proactive ways in which we can, I mean, the system can actually inform the employer or even the employee from what you call going over these thresholds or blocking them from going to these thresholds from the system itself?
Yes, of course, because like once we embed these policies into the system, let's take for example the OT threshold. So employers just can't apply OT in that sense. It goes for a through application or workflow. And at the point of the workflow, the supervisor knows like whether the employee is reaching its threshold. Or from employee self-service point of view also, he knows like if I'm allowed to do maximum 48 hours of overtime for a month, now where am I? Or so because it's a controlled environment. So if you have a threshold being placed as a control factor, then everything falls under it. So the environment get regulatory.
So basically, which mean to say that the employers are protected from committing
But yes,
unknown offense.
unknown offense plus they may be like legally bound for certain actions as well. So these thresholds are protecting the organizations maybe unknowingly going into these gray areas.
Understood, Asita. But at the same time, I would just want to ask you another question. I think this is also very important because, see, when you go to certain countries, it's not only the tax laws what you see.
Hmm.
Sometimes you find these local nuances because
Correct.
how they do things. I mean, example, how they do things in terms of doing payroll is not the same in Kenya opposed to maybe Philippines. So I mean, do you consider these also as a factor into the system?
Yes, because that happens through our continuous engagement with our customers as well. Because the nuances doesn't come from the legal organizations when we do the localization as a first step. This is basically work with our partners and our customers. Then we understand in this journey what are these common nuances, and then we bring them back into our engineering practice, make them generalized so that the other customers in that region have a luxury of consuming these nuances within the system.
That's interesting, Asita. I mean, as we go, basically now, I think we spoke about local payroll statutory compliance, how we adopt what you call the nuances, but at the same time, I think more and more countries are also actually imposing this. And if you look at a lot of organizations are already very much aware of this. Areas like data security, what do you call protection, the what do you call cloud securities aspects when it comes to payroll. What are your thoughts on this area?
Yeah.
How is this achieved in the system, Asita?
Yeah, this is actually paramount important area when it comes to any system, but especially into the payroll, because from payroll point of view, it's a very regulated area from front end point of view from a system and from the back end point of the system as well. So from the database side, if I may talk a little bit, like, we have to have the encryption logics. So none of the data being readable from backend, even for administrator. So that's been secured from one angle. And then from the front end point of view, access control. So who need to see what and to what level has to be controlled. So payroll officer sometimes may only process the payroll, but they are not eligible to see certain other pay groups. Say, for example, in organization, you run a director's payroll and an executive payroll, which may be run by two employees. to payroll executives. So they don't see each other's data. But maybe there's a financial control who will be approving the payrolls at the end, who can see both. It's based on his access level. And then it's important from the compliance point to have the audits, because it's not really we are saying like people intentionally do damage, but there can be certain incidents where we need to go back and trace what happened in point of mitigating actions. So audit, a real-time audit is really required, and plus the flexibility that we given to an organization to set up audit the way they want. Sometimes we may say certain fields are auditable, it's required, but the organization may say based on their policy, we want to audit maybe X field, we want to encrypt this Y field and things like that. So it can happen in business because what we provide is a platform with the capabilities, but the best use of how it been deployed, it's up to the organization with some consultancy from people's HR like that.
Aditya,
So it's really important.
I'm very much sure that you're very excited to talk about this. But see, I mean, I just want to make it a little bit of in a layman's term. Like when you say encryption, what
Hmm.
does this what do you call translate to uh,
Yeah,
a finance person? What does this mean to them?
it's basically let's say in a very layman term, when you encrypt a field, it's not readable from the source itself. You have to have a way of reversing it back to a readable format. So that's happened through only a system. So when you encrypt, so the decryption logic is also built into the system. So maybe uh, going from other sources to this field, the data is not readable. So it's
So
being
ba-
protected.
basically, what you're saying is you need to probably have the same system, and if you do have a
Yes.
strong encryption logic, only that system will be able to read it back. So no
Yes.
one else will actually see this information in transit or when it's even
Yeah.
fast in any form.
Yeah. And maybe there's another important point. Now, when it comes to why we are talking all this, it's because of the data protection. So, for example, let's take Philippine Data Protection Act or Kenyan Data Protection Act or maybe GDPR or personal data protection. So all these data protections globally, locally, and regional level are impacting the organizations. And as a vendor, we have to understand that these are obligations from the vendor's point of view to adhere. So when we sign up and when we comply and say we are complied to Kenyan or Philippine or personal data protection, that means the necessary controls will be deployed in the system to accommodate these needs. Because from organization point of view, they cross-check through maybe their internal audits through the ISO. So we are make sure there's non-compliances coming because of the incompatibility of our platforms with data protection regulations.
Thank you, Asita. Thank you very much for that. I'm sure there's a lot of work which goes into this, and what do you call a lot of energy is in being put into this because I mean, everyone knows, I mean, security is a moving target. So, I mean, as things change around the world, what do you call the system also should be able to adapt and be uh, ready with the latest updates. Is there by any chance a third party? What do you call? You actually give a third party to actually validate or audit the system uh, in terms
Yes.
of security compliance areas.
Yes, of course. Because like, I mean, like as a software house, we do our first level testing, but it doesn't really make sense for us to say we are compliant and we have tested internally when it comes to a external person's point of view, especially from security. So what we do is basically we do an annual assessment with a global known regulatory body, and they certify us for a X number of period. We are being cleaned of certain issues and security threats. So this happen on annual basis. So all our products and our platforms and our cloud data centers all been audited with this third-party global organization, and then they certify us. So that's why we have this ISO 27000, then SOX compliance, then ISO 27017 for cloud and infrastructure. So we are the first customer locally to gain that accreditation. So we use these accreditations and we renew this on annual basis so that we keep ourselves up to date with the to handle threats opposed by external factors.
Thank you, Asita. I'm sure there's a lot of areas when it comes to this compliance which we could talk about, but I will hope that we'll have another opportunity to actually mingle with
Yeah,
this audience to, I mean, shed some more light, because I have loads of questions which just comes up to my mind, but I'm just conscious of time. I know that we do have questions coming from the audience, so just before we take the questions, we'll just cover one more slide. You spoke about this previously when you were talking about
yes.
automation area. Would you want to elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah. I'll
Uh,
just touch on because Riyas, we have talked many things around this. So like this is like a kind of a summary slide in another way, because like now what we have spoken about, one is like with a proper payroll practice. So we eliminate certain risks. So as you see in screen, like like ghost employees. When you have a large organization, public sector organization especially, you have this situation: ghost employees, falsified wage and commissions, and inflated salaries, duplicate or irrelevant reimbursements. Sometimes this is common case, no? Like when it comes to, let's say you do a reimbursement, a person does once today, maybe after 6 months down the line, same chit he produced again for a reimbursement. So these risks being mitigated because there are certain thresholds and controls and certain actual AI tools also being in place to handle all these risk areas. And then from organization point of view, like sometimes employees maybe consciously override the existing controls. So we need to have proper auditing mechanisms to when there's a configuration change or control change, auditing mechanism. Or maybe the business practice is poor. So that's why a reputed vendor can help the client to streamline the business practice, because the system also comes with a maturity after a period of time working with various customers in globally. So it brings a certain level of maturity to business practice as well. And then if there are any lack of internal controls, the system itself enforce or provides insights. These are the controls you need to fulfill or adapt. So the big problem, I think I have touched on that earlier, like when it comes to fraud, this fake, inflation, irrelevant reimbursement, all these are frauds. So these can be minor frauds, but it won't be triggered on monthly basis. It will take long period of time for organization to understand there is a problem happening in this area. Maybe some employees, uh, remitting money to a fake employee's account or ex-employee's account, maybe a few cents. It happens through a period of time. And it leads to maybe a substantial amount of loss in your annual revenue. And from detection point of view, so there are so many tools we have inbuilt. So statistical regression. So I will not go into detail, but these are kind of tools. Then natural language processing tools for identifying, reimbursements. You scan the chits and they need to identify for duplicates. Then RPA for process improvement, and the predictive analytics for identifying certain patterns and malpractices. So in very summary areas, that's what this slide means.
I mean, without taking time, a quick answer. I mean, have you embedded this into your product?
Yeah, what I have mentioned here is what's there in the system. So it's not just theory, it's been what we have practiced. Certain things are pretty new to us, maybe the version 1, but still those are in the system for us to try and test. Because certain things, it's not like 1-0. Like if you really talk about predictive natural NLP, so it will take time for them to mature as well. So there are certain machine learning algorithms, it will take time, but still we have taken certain first steps to embed these technologies to have a proper, accurate, and uh, uh, solid payrolls platform.
Thank you, Asita. Dinali, would you want to actually bring up any questions from our audience? Probably we can take few for the moment. I think the rest we can actually reply back to them.
Yes. So as you all were presenting parallelly, I was answering a couple of questions that had come in. So at the moment, the floor is open. If you all want to drop any questions, we are open for a Q&A session. I think I answered majority of it.
Thank you, Dinali. Thank you for supporting us with that. Because see, this is a wide area, and I don't think one hour webinar would actually justify covering everything. So we tried our best in terms of
Yeah.
capturing a lot of aspects. But see, in conclusion, I just want to ask Asita. See, I mean, world is changing as we know. I mean, things which were there in the past, how we did things in the past are not the same anymore now. I mean, I'm sure this is the same case for payroll because see, uh, I mean, there are a lot of digital payment technologies which has come up
Yeah.
like QR payments and so on. And even what do you call employees don't really need to wait until they get their salary. They could probably go to a earn wage provider, get this. So
Yeah.
uh, how is it changing? I mean, are you able to give that insight to us
Yeah.
as well?
Yeah, very shortly, Riasi. I mean, like, when the generations change from Gen Z to different generations, their expectations are also changing. So we have to understand as a payroll provider how we should change for today and how we should change for the future needs as well. So, I mean, like, now, in typical organization, you have seen like monthly payroll, fortnightly, daily, but now they want real-time payrolls. So you may, because now we are seeing a lot of freelancers, contractors. Those are not even for fixed time. Our now generations are there, travel, and during the travel they do a small job, maybe few hours. So how are you going to pay them? Like, do you pay them through a contract or maybe for few hours? How do you pay them? So do you get them into the real payroll or you pay them through cryptocurrency? So these are different challenges actually that we are seeing. Digital wallets, mobile payments. So these are the areas that we are also envisioning to go into. Because what we are identifying is like, our ecosystem of employees. So employees are getting changed. So we have to, as a payroll system, we need to adapt. So certain things we have already started adapting, like now, for example, earn wage. So you don't need to stay until the month end. You work for 10 days, you ask for the money for that number of 10 days that you have worked. Because now what the thinking is that you work for X number of days and you are allowed to cash that value as money after 10 days. You don't need to wait for 30 days. Then flexible packages. Now even nowadays the packages are sort of fixed, but now going forward the packages are more dynamic, flexible. It depends on the nature of the younger generations that are coming into the workplace. So with that saying, Riasi, it's a change. It's inevitable, but we know what need to be changed and we are going in the proper direction and absorbing the things that as they require based on a priority of the organization and our clients as well.
So Asita, just one question. See, I mean, I'm sure some of the finance teams on our call would have just got a little scared when you said that, you'll get paid after working for 10 days. So is this through the organization itself, or is it through
And
third parties,
no,
or
no,
is
no.
there a service providers who
Yes,
can
yes.
come into the system?
There are service providers, because like it's not through the organization. It's when you say earn wage, it's sort of like, it's provided through a bank. So we as a platform, we nominate a bank in a given country. So earn wage request can be raised by employee in the organization. It goes through approval, then it goes through a bank, and there's a settlement mechanism as well. So bank does the direct remittance at the same time, but within the bank and the vendor and the client, there is a mechanism of settlement at the month end. So there is a quota mechanism. So for a given client, the quota can be defined. So within that quota, earn wage can be handled and at the month end, it's been settled. But from employee's point of view, as soon as it get approved, there's money getting remitted into a bank account. So you don't see the other workings, how it gets settled and things like that. But it's a convenience that we are bringing to the users.
Thank you, Asita. Thank you for clearing that out. See, there's more thoughts, what you call coming up, but once again, thank you, Asita. Just leaving you with some what you call case studies as to how People's HR has actually changed organizations in terms of supporting their what do you call practices into a more digitalized, more robust, efficient approach, while actually making sure that they stay competitive. So this is a case study of Zillion. I'm sure the team will actually what do you call share this information case by case if you on request, and at the same time just want to highlight, because see, we spoke about RPA, we spoke about so many areas. So basically we are talking about at least an 80% optimization when it comes to the payroll element, and this is across 40 countries. So whether you're actually expanding within your own country, we can actually help you achieve this. Dinali, would you want to talk about the cheat sheet?
Yes. Yes, so I think we've come to an end, and before we wrap up, I would want you all to kind of scan the code on the screen that you see, and it's also on chat. Can you? We love your feedback. So on the sessions, if you could share your feedback with us, and we'd send in exclusive HR resource, which is a payroll cheat sheet. I think it'll be very insightful and valuable for you all. And apart from that, the recording, yes, and the slide and extra resources will also be sent your way. So I would highly encourage everyone to fill the feedback form. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you,
Have a
everyone.
wonderful evening. Thank you.
Have a good day.